Really, feminists? Come on, there's got to be a happy medium between a husband making his wife wear this and a husband making his wife wear this. I know 1619 was bad, but this is happening right now, right under your nose rings. You knew how wrong it was when tens of millions of South Africans had been treated like second-class citizens just because of their race. But here's the thing. Today, right now, hundreds of millions of women are treated worse than second-class citizens. When you mandate that one category of human beings don't even have the right to show their face, that's apartheid.
Bill Maher is done staying quiet. On Real Time, he's taking aim at what he calls performative activism. People who seem more interested in looking virtuous than actually making a difference. He's calling out the constant outrage, the virtue signaling, and the obsession with appearances over action. According to Maher, this kind of activism isn't helping anyone. It's just noise. His latest comments are sharp, direct, and meant to spark real conversation. If you're tired of empty slogans and want more honesty in public debate, Maher's message might hit home.
If you're out protesting for a couple of hours wearing this, you have to go all the way and spend an afternoon running errands wearing one of these. You can't side with the people who ruthlessly oppress women without at least getting a taste of what you're supporting.
Bill Maher is speaking out again, and this time he's calling out activists who he says are more focused on looking good than doing good. On Real Time, he criticized what he sees as fake outrage and virtue signaling. Strong opinions with little real action behind them. Maher says he's had enough of the drama and is using his platform to push back his message. If you care about real change, stop performing and start thinking.
Well, now that summer is here and the Hamas-backing college protesters have dispersed back to their summer internships at Goldman Sachs, I thought it might be a good time to say this. I actually admire your youthful idealism, and our world would be poorer without it. Much like your parents who just wasted 300 grand on that ignorance factory you call a college. Not that I think it's your fault being this poorly educated and morally confused. That takes a village. Shitty schools, overindulgent parents, social media, that priest who rubbed lotion on you. But three cheers to you for at least having the impulse to seek a cause and something bigger than yourself. It's just that the one you picked, you missed the boat by a fucking mile.
Bill Maher is calling out what he sees as a big problem in education. Today, students are leaving college with debt, little critical thinking, and some shocking views. He points to young people supporting harmful groups like Hamas, not because they're bad people, but because they haven't been taught to think for themselves. Maher says he respects their passion, but questions what it's being used for. In his view, it's not a lack of heart, it's a lack of proper guidance.
Here's the good news. You want a cause? 'Cause I totally got one for you. Apartheid. Yeah, apartheid, the thing you've been shouting about with Israel for months. Never mind that Israeli Arabs are actually full citizens. You learned that word from a 2 Chainz song and discovered that protesting South Africa's apartheid in the 80s was a righteous cause, and so it was. To this day, when celebrities are asked who is the person they most admire, one name is always the safest choice.
Nelson Mandela.
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 So naturally, when you heard that Israel was an apartheid state, it gave you such a boner, you literally pitched a tent.
Nelson Mandela stood for something real, the fight to end apartheid and bring freedom to South Africa. His cause wasn't about slogans or chasing online attention. It was about justice, sacrifice, and staying true to strong moral values. Mandela didn't fight to look good or go viral. He read deeply, thought carefully, and understood the world he was trying to change. He didn't shut people down for having different views or push shallow ideas to feel morally right. He worked to unite people, not divide them. Mandela knew that real progress takes knowledge, compassion, and patience, not just loud protests and clever signs. Many of today's self-proclaimed activists could learn a lot from his example.
How wrong it was when tens of millions of South Africans had been treated like second-class citizens just because of their race. But here's the thing. Today, right now, hundreds of millions of women are treated worse than second-class citizens. When you mandate that one category of human beings don't even have the right to show their face, that's apartheid. And it goes on in a lot of countries.
And that, Bill Maher says, is exactly the problem with many so-called woke activists today. They talk about how much they admire figures like Nelson Mandela, sharing his quotes, calling him a hero, but rarely stand up for the kind of causes he actually fought for. Maher's message is straightforward. If you truly look up to Mandela, then act like it. Speak out for the oppressed, all of them, not just when it's trendy or politically convenient. Right now, millions of women across parts of the Arab world and beyond are still denied basic rights. Many can't vote, can't own property, and in some cases, can't even leave home without permission from a male guardian. It's a form of apartheid, not based on race, but on gender. And yet, where is the global outrage? Where are the marches, the hashtags, the rallies demanding justice for these women? Instead, we see students passionately waving flags and chanting in support of groups known for violence and extremism. The disconnect is hard to ignore, and, as Maher points out, it's not just ironic, it's deeply tragic.
Last couple of years, women in Iran have been saying, "Take this hijab and shove it." Because in 2022, a young woman named Mahsa Amini was arrested for wearing her mandatory hijab incorrectly and then died in police custody. And now security forces have killed over 500 people protesting her death and this obvious human rights violation. How about defunding those police?
Bill Maher isn't backing down. He continues to call out woke activists, especially those pushing the defund the police movement. He points out how a few bad cops led to calls for tearing down an entire system with no real plan for what to replace it with. Using his usual mix of sarcasm and sharp reasoning, Maher questions the logic of abandoning law enforcement altogether, while ignoring much worse abuses happening around the world. In places like Iran, for example, women can be arrested and humiliated in public just for not wearing a hijab. That's real, government-backed oppression, not satire. Yet Maher notes, many of the same voices so loud on U.S. issues stay quiet about that. No hashtags, no protests, no speeches, because calling out those regimes doesn't fit the popular narrative. To Maher, it's clear this is selective activism, and he's not afraid to say it.
Amnesty International says that Iranian authorities are waging a war on women that subjects them to constant surveillance, beatings, sexual violence, and detention, what P. Diddy calls a hotel stay. In Iran, Me Too isn't a movement. It's what a woman says when another woman says, "My life sucks."
The International says, Iran is waging a war on women using force, fear, and strict control to keep them in line. Bill Maher highlighted this and questioned why some activists stay silent about it. He pointed out that while women in the U.S. have the freedom to live, speak, and act independently, many in other countries don't have basic rights, yet some still choose to focus only on America's flaws, or worse, defend regimes that oppress women. Maher's message is simple. If you care about human rights, speak up for all women, not just when it's...
Yasmin Mohammed is a human rights activist who got married off to a Muslim man with fundamentalist views about women, not exactly uncommon in the Muslim world. He forced her to wear the niqab all the time, including once beating her because she took her hijab off at home because the apartment had a window through which people might see in. And this was in Vancouver. Here's what Yasmin said about veiling. It just suppresses your humanity entirely. It's like a portable sensory deprivation chamber, and you are no longer connected to humanity. You can't see properly. You can't hear properly. You can't speak properly. People can't see you. You can only see them. Just little things, passing people on the street and just making eye contact and smiling, that's gone. You're no longer part of this world, and so you very quickly just shrivel up into nothing under there. And that's my answer when someone says Islamophobe.
You notice that silence. It wasn't just a pause. It was a moment that should have sparked applause. But that's the conversation no one wants to have. The second you criticize Islam, you're labeled an Islamophobe. Meanwhile, criticism of other religions, especially Christianity, is not only allowed, it's often praised. You'll often hear, Muslims openly challenge Western values, Christianity, or secularism. But when Islamic beliefs are questioned, it's suddenly seen as hateful. That silence reveals something deeper, a clear double standard. We're quick to defend Islam from even gentle criticism, yet we allow, even encourage, open debate and mockery of other religions. He speaks openly and directly about what others won't touch, and he does it with confidence, clarity, and no—
Really, feminists? Come on, there's got to be a happy medium between a husband making his wife wear this and a husband making his wife wear this. I know 1619 was bad, but this is happening right now, right under your nose rings.
Maher isn't holding back this time. He's calling out the double standards in modern feminism. He points to how Kanye West gets slammed online for supposedly controlling how his wife dresses. Social media explodes. Headlines follow, and critics rush to call it sexist or oppressive. But Maher asks, where's that outrage when it comes to the women of Iran? Women there are forced by law to cover their hair and bodies, and punished if they don't. No choice, no freedom. Yet there's barely a whisper from the same activists so loud about Hollywood wardrobe choices. If a woman choosing to wear a tight dress is called oppression, what do you call being arrested for not wearing a headscarf? That's not just a double standard, it's hypocrisy. Maher's point is simple. If feminism is truly about defending women's rights, it should apply everywhere. You can't shout about patriarchy from Beverly Hills and ignore real, brutal oppression in Tehran. Feminism without consistency isn't activism, it's performance. And Maher is done pretending it's anything else.
And it's not just the clothes. 15 countries in the Middle East, including Gaza, have laws that require women to obey their husbands. Laws, not just Harrison Butker's opinion.
The end. Bill Maher isn't just telling jokes. He's calling out the double standards, the selective outrage, and the lack of real thought behind much of today's so-called progressive movement. From defending extremist groups to staying silent on real oppression, Maher says many activists have lost sight of what true justice looks like. They praise figures like Nelson Mandela, but ignore the people today who are suffering under brutal regimes. They criticize their own country non-stop, while turning a blind eye to far worse. Abuses abroad. Maher says what many are thinking but are too afraid to say, and he does it without apology. In a time when free speech often takes a back seat to fear and self-censorship, his voice stands out. He reminds us that truth doesn't need to trend, it just needs to be said. If you found this video helpful or thought-provoking, don't forget to like and subscribe for more content like this.